Welcome to episode 3 of CyberBytes, the podcast. I'm your host, Joseph Cooper, co-founder of Aspiron Search. This week's guest, we have CISO Jeff Moss. Jeff is currently looking for his next CISO role, having just finished up with Rebellion Defense. He has such an interesting story to tell, having gone from a product security engineer to a CISO in just 4 years. Here it is. How are you, mate?
Doing well. How about yourself?
Yeah, all good. Busy, but I'm really excited to have you on the pod, actually. I know you've got a really interesting background. I know we've spoken a little bit over the last couple of weeks as you're looking for a new role. So I think this is a good opportunity to really talk about your background and what value you can really add to a new organization. With all my guests, I've been starting right at the beginning and sort of going through the career. So yeah, where it all started for you, Jeff.
Yeah, hey, I appreciate being on. I actually started on the business side. So I did project and program management for the state. I actually managed like construction projects, IT projects, you name it. From there, I moved into program management and leadership development, organizational change management, and process improvement. Probably about 8 or 10 years in, I decided, hey, these projects that I'm managing that are IT and they're pretty exciting, like I want to do that stuff. Like I want to be in that. So I actually went back and got my postbachelorate in computer science and reinvigorated my career. I was working on a legislative IT project for the Oregon PERS system at the time. And I made a deal with the CIO. I said, hey, I'll help get this over the line, but I actually kind of want to do a little bit of programming. So we kind of had a deal in place where I was managing that project and kind of getting into the tech field.
What's that like going back to school, Jeff?
Oh, man, it was brutal. It was tough, right? I actually had like an hour commute during the time. At the time, I was, doing post-bac, and I was also working this project that was really important to the state. So I am glad I did it, but I don't know that I would do it again at this moment in my life. And so from there, I got more and more involved in coding. I was doing more DevSecOps stuff for them. And I moved into a role at Tripwire, which was probably like my first like security, like building role, where I worked on the enterprise file integrity monitoring systems. It's called Tripwire, Enterprise, and it's used to secure nuclear power plants, banks, point of sale systems, whatever is important. And that company was very like security forward. And so that was a great experience for me to kind of leap in and say, wow, I really love security. And here are some opportunities where I can actually help out on security. And they were very open to that. And that's, I think, where I got like my foot in the door in security.
Got it. So you was actually building the Tripwire solution?
Yes.
Got ya. And was that a large team, or was that just how big was it at the time?
At the time, I think there were about 6 core team members. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. There were a lot of teams that supported the overall Tripwire products. So we all worked together pretty closely. But in terms of the core team members, there were about 6 or 7.
Got ya. So after Tripwire, then you went on to
Auth0.
Cool. What was you doing there?
Oh, so that was my very first like pure security role. And basically I worked in product security as a product security engineer, securing Auth0's identity access management product. So, typical product security duties were like threat modeling, helping build like secure libraries, doing all the like typical DevSecOps type things. I actually built an attack library for the OpenID Connect and OAuth 2. Basically, this attack library was used to use the test products to see if there were common problems that were attack vectors for both OpenID Connect and OAuth 2. So that was kind of one of the things that I was really proud about building.
Nice. Can anyone get access to that, or?
I don't think so.
No, I'm just messing. So obviously you've then gone on to after Auth0, where did you go?
Yeah, I went to a place called F9 Teams, and they did contracting work for the Air Force, and I helped build a supply chain security solution using Kubernetes to do like ephemeral scans on the Air Force's command control applications. It was very cool. It was a really fun project. From there, that company, F9, was contracting with another company, Rebellion, and I jumped into Rebellion as a early security hire at Rebellion, helped build out their risk management program, their cloud security program, product security programs, security architecture programs, and build their basic infrastructure for security.
Got it. Got it. So obviously you've gone from a product security engineer to a CISO pretty quickly, like 3-4 years. Like, how did that all evolve so quickly, and how did you adapt? And I think it's quite an interesting journey, because you wouldn't sort of see that on your traditional resume, someone going from a product security engineer and then being a CISO within the next 4 years. How did that happen?
Actually, I kind of feel like I hit the sweet spot for me. I started on the business side. I have an MBA. I've seen that side, I think, of the business. And it was like my first opportunity to say, oh, there's a need there. I have the technical skill set to help us bring us there, and then operate it. And so that was kind of like, once I saw those opportunities, I said, I can do that, and just tackle it and make it happen. And where there's a need, and this is one of the things that I found very true for security for me, is that there's always a need somewhere where it's something that's dangling, that's like, no one's working on it. There's a need, the company needs it's an important. And then if you dive in on that, all of a sudden people go, oh, well, go to that person. Yeah. So yeah, it's been great.
But how does someone go about that? Like you say about diving in, just straight in. How does someone like effectively build security strategies and sort of being a completely green to it? Like, how did you learn, or do you have help, or how did that come? Yeah. How did it just seem sort of, how did it happen, you know?
Yeah, have it like a good mentor network is really important. I think, learning from others and like what they've dealt with. I am a complete bookworm. I'm actually reading Chris's Startup Secure, which is a great book. Yeah, it's great. About halfway through it, I'm really loving it. So, I probably should publish a list of all the books that I've read that have just really been helpful for me. I know there's books out there that are helpful for others too. Really build that mentor network. If you're just starting in security, also, or want to, just reach out to the security team. You'd be surprised how many security folks are like extremely excited to have somebody somebody on the other side, like on the business side, to connect with and be a champion. I think just adding exposure to wherever you're at. When I was at Tripwire, I was working on security. Sorry about the dog. He's playing with.
That's so good.
Boys. So I was working on like security bugs, helping with the pen tests, those types of things. And that, those roles will grow. Where there's a need, people will see it.
Mm. How did you drive like the security culture Rebellion?
That's a tough one for, I think, all companies. I think you really need to meet people where they're at in the security culture. You have to really know at what level will people. Are we talking about engineers who are really skilled on like the technical side, and so we need to focus more on the supply chain? Or are we talking about people who maybe aren't as tech savvy and are on the business side, right? And so I think you really need to know where people are at. You have to start with basics, and you have to keep it short and entertaining. I think I was talking about some privacy aspects, and I related it to pineapple on pizza. And, just keep it light and try to make it quick so that people are still engaged.
Yeah, got it. But obviously you as the technical guy. What about the GRC stuff? People say the boring stuff. Some listening to this might not think that, but how about all the compliance and all the NIST and the different sort of regulations, getting up to date with all of that? Like, how was that exposure? And obviously being a technical guy.
Yeah. Actually, this kind of reminds me a bit about the post between like the technical CISO and the strategic CISO, right? Like at the startup phase, you really are very hands-on, but you really need to have an eye for where you need to be next. And that's one of the things that I've been really focused on, is like really paying attention to laws and regulations and the things that are moving, or particularly around CMMC, particularly around, the lots of cybersecurity, like executive orders coming out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the exec order, is it April? I think it is, that the board have to have a
Sorry, my dog is just hacking up
oh, that's all good. I can't see. I can't see it.
That's why I got distracted.
Just tickling your feet. But no, I think that the SEC are obviously bringing in from April that the board have to have cybersecurity professionals on. I think that's really going to drive, particularly for CISOs, being the need for a CISO within an organization, particularly for financial services.
Yeah, particularly around private equity. I think we're going to start to see a big change. We've already started to see that with some private equity firms being much more strict about their cybersecurity due diligence. And I think that we're only going to just see more shifts there. This is just my own personal opinion, but with, the start with public companies, I could see private equity following along.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier about having a good mentor. Like, how did you find a good mentor? And
yeah, I think it depends on what you're kind of looking at the time. I really like this theory. I forget where I read it, but it's this paintbrush theory where if you paint on the wall, the harder and longer that you hold the paintbrush on that wall, that line on the wall, the longer the drips. And that's like your specialization. And then of course, like the stroke is like your breadth. So I look at it as you'll need to grow and learn different things throughout your career. And sometimes you'll have to be that expert and you'll have to exert that pressure and that depth and the time. And that is where I look for mentors, particularly, is I really need to expand this skill set. Hey, you are really knowledgeable in this area, and it doesn't matter who it is. It could be, somebody that you casually met, that made friends with or whatnot, but has that experience. And that's kind of how I look at it, is as I need it. And then also being that person where other people, as they need it, throughout their careers, they're looking to grow and expand.
Are you mentoring at the moment? Are you actually mentoring anybody?
Not right now, but I have mentored other post-bac students that were kind of moving from other careers into like technical careers. These students have been people who are very like nurses. They've been in kind of like in a bunch of different roles. And it's really exciting to see them jump into the technical aspect, because then they also have that business side too. And they can start to see those connections about where value happens at like the intersection of technology.
Got it. When you as a hiring manager, what sort of traits would you be looking for from new staff when you was onboarding them?
Well, first, I would say the number one thing that we always kind of joke about is that we don't hire jerks. You can be the most brilliant person in the world, but if you're a jerk, you're not going to work with us. So that's the first thing, because it only takes one. It only takes one to really erode the trust of a security team, and the security team is about trust. So I'd say that's kind of the first bit. The soft skills are really important, the communication pieces. But when we start talking about the technical skills, we actually align the job description with actual questions associated with those, so that candidates get no surprises, right? Like if you're expected to have some sort of like coding experience, then there'll be some sort of coding like assessment.
Yeah. Got it. What about academics? Obviously, you went back to school to then sort of shift into security. Like, what's your take on academics and having an academic background to get into security? Because some of the best people I know have none, but I know some companies are still put in, you must have a computer science degree as a minimum on their job specs. Like, is academics something that you look for, or is that just...
That's a good question. I would say that I wouldn't weight it as heavily, but it is a nice to have. So, one of the things, on the technical side, I think it's a little bit easier to get away with not having like a formal education. But as I think you get more strategic, more about the programs, more about the business, and I think that there needs to be that business acumen, particularly in a leadership role. So at some point, I do think there might be a little bit of a ceiling for those who don't have the education, but there might also be other ways to counteract that too. Sure. Right. So like, I wouldn't say that it's one or the other. It really depends on each person's journey and kind of what they're looking for. Yeah.
It's a great question, because I got asked it by Mirko from HelpNet Security a couple of weeks ago, and he interviewed me and he said, like, what are companies looking for in terms of academic backgrounds? And I've got business that don't give a damn about academics or anything like that. But then I've also got clients where they look for Ivy League, the hedge funds particularly are looking for Ivy League 4.0 GPA. And it just sort of, there's a big contrast. But yeah, I just wondered what your perspective on it was. What's next for you then, Jeff? What's next for you?
Right now, I'm enjoying I think I'll be going to Universal Studios. So awesome. that'll be the next thing. I am definitely looking at a few different kind of opportunities, particularly kind of like the startups in the early validation phase and a couple on the growth stage. So definitely love the startup world. It's an exciting place to like build from scratch, move quickly, and be a part of really cool like opportunity.
Absolutely.
So looking at the startups.
Absolutely. Just to close this out then, what advice would you give to somebody that's in a similar position to you was maybe 7 to 10 years ago, like wanting a shift in career, and what advice would you give them?
I would say don't be shy. I would bet that if you reached out to even if you work at a big organization, if you reached out to your CISO and said, I would love to be more involved in security in some way, they would find out a way to find some space for you to do that. So don't be shy. Get closer to those that you want to, do their job. Like, get closer to them, get more exposure to that, and be hungry for knowledge and just keep reading and growing.
You brought up reading a couple of times. Well, what's been your like favorite book if you were to shortlist to one?
Oh, that's tough. Boy. I'm probably between, I really like Adam Shostack's threat modeling book. On the technical side, because it ties in a lot of the technical pieces. The CISO desk references, of course, are great because you can just kind of go to them. Like, I have a question about this thing. I got to say, I'm really loving that Startup Secure book. It's a great read. It's a really light, like digestible read, but has a lot of really good nuggets there. And I can only wish that all CEOs read that book, right? That are like starting their startups, because
agreed.
They'll save so much money.
Yeah, agreed. Well, listen, Jeff, been an absolute pleasure having you on. It's made me laugh that your dog's been tickling your feet and you've been trying not to laugh the whole time. So good luck with the search. I'll put your LinkedIn profile in the show notes so people can contact you directly anyways, but always a pleasure to catch up.